Okay, so we saw a graphical representation of Haidt's results. Conservatives have a 5-channel morality, and liberals have a 2-channel morality. So those are the major findings of his early research. In particular, conservatives are valuing all 5 domains of the moral foundations, where liberals are emphasizing the harm, care, and the fairness reciprocity. Now, from an anthropology point of view, the conservative pattern of endorsing all 5 domains is the most common that you find around the world in cultures all over. So it raises sort of the historical question is why liberals have shrunk their moral domain down to 2. Haidt speculates that social mobility, free markets, diversity make shared tradition difficult. And so if you're doing business with people from different places and cultures and so on, the idea is you got to be sort of tolerant to their traditions, their customs, and so on if you're going to do business. And so the liberals sort of focus on just the 2 domains and may be related to some of the historical interactions between societies in the past. Now let's take a look at those 3 foundations that the conservatives endorse more than the liberals, the Ingroup loyalty. What are some examples of that? Well, patriotism would be one, right? So, America, love it or leave it type of idea. Racial preferences, so anti-affirmative action positions. Remember, we said that, arguing for the level playing field will tend to favor the social group who already has an advantage. In this case, historically, that would be whites in America. Or in terms of norms, loyalty to the norm of individualism, right, is a sort of a loyalty to a basic American norm. Well, then violators of that would be people like welfare recipients. They're showing a disloyalty to that ideal of individualism. Right? The Authority Respect Foundation, submission to authority, for example, law and order. So we should show submission to police officers and military personnel and so on. The tough on crime approach, these would be manifestations of the Authority Respect Foundation. Respect for traditional gender roles. So an anti-feminism position here would be in line with this concern for authority and respect. Of course, feminism was challenging, right, the traditional gender roles, trying to overturn some of those historical gender roles, and that would be seen as challenging the historical authority of say males in the home, or respecting tradition, right, of that gender role arrangement. Purity, sanctity, the other foundation here, this would be embodied in the rejection of non-traditional sexual behavior. So taking a position of anti-gay rights, for example. Or rejecting evolution, the notion that humans had ape ancestors, or consumerism or hedonism. All these would be sort of violations of this foundation here. Now, conservatives value these 3 foundations because they help create and maintain social order, right? And that is an important value. For conservatives. Of course, liberals want to create and maintain social order as well, but they don't tend to want to do them through the application of these moral foundations. Because for liberals, they worry that those 3 moral foundations can be oppressive. So the Ingroup Foundation, for example, is one example of that would be racism. So when whites are favoring other whites, or we have white privilege in society, this is at the expense of other groups in society. For the Authority Foundation, historically, this would be patriarchy, right? So the feminists had to push back against these traditional gender norms in order to secure more liberty for women. And so again, the notion of authority then can be oppressive for the feminists. And purity. The contemporary example would be gay rights. And so, again, gays in society are pushing back against some moral foundations of others in society. So for liberals, these 3 moral foundations, while they might serve a function, that conservatives like and endorse, they can be oppressive. So liberals are likely to worry about the oppressive natures of these foundations, and conservatives are more likely to see the positive side of these foundations, that they help to create and maintain social order. Here we see some of the results of the survey research broken down into the 4 clusters of political groups in society. So we've got secular liberals, libertarians, we've got the religious left, this would be African American community, and the social conservatives. And notice the heights of the bars would indicate how important those domains are for that particular group, right? So the moral foundation valuation. So the higher the bar, the more likely that group endorses those items as being of moral concern. Here we have the liberals: high harm and fairness, low in-group authority purity. Right, that's the liberal pattern. If we compare it to the conservatives, notice the conservatives have high bars, relatively high bars for all 5. Right, that's the 5-channel morality, the 2-channel morality. Now it's true that the liberals have higher harm and fairness bars than the conservatives, and in a little later we'll think about how that might manifest itself in politics. But here the idea from the last slide about the 3 in-group authority purity here. So here the idea is that liberals do not see these issues as moral, in part, Haidt argues, because of the danger of these being used in oppressive ways, whereas conservatives are more likely to value those 3 domains because of their positive function of maintaining and creating and maintaining cooperative social groups. Now, if you take a look at the other 2 political groups that Haidt has data on, the libertarians, notice the harm and fairness bars are lower than the liberals, sort of more along the lines of the conservatives. So the harm and fairness is conservative, but the in-group authority purity bars are more like the liberals than the conservatives. So the libertarians are an interesting mix. They've got pretty much all of their moral settings are lower, right? They're just not as high as some of the other groups. And they sort of have a pattern that is somewhat liberal in the low IAP bars and somewhat conservative in the harm and fairness bars, lower than the liberals, similar to the conservatives. The religious left in the African American community, here we have the harm fairness bars very much like liberals, but in addition, the IAP bars are similar to conservatives. And again, we'll see a little later how that has political implications.